Okay, let's talk about dyes. Dyes in our food. Red, we all know them. Red dye, 40, red dye, this, yellow dye, and all the dyes. Um, let's just take it for what it is. There is absolutely no nutrients in it, and in fact, it does more harm to the body than it could ever do good. And we just all accept that dyes are normal and a part of our food, but none of us tend to question why it's in our food. And obviously it's in our food to make it look better or make kids want to eat it more. But there's so many studies on what these dyes do to the brain and to the body. Once you dive down that hole and start researching it, you should be afraid to ever feed it to your kids. When I was young, I loved candy. Any type of, not chocolate, but the fruity stuff, Spree and sour Skittles and Starburst. Well, all those are full of dyes. And I remember spending trip after trip to Nemours Clinic when I was a kid, because I was having terrible migraines, like pass out migraines. And I thought to myself just recently, like, I wonder if it was from all those dyes. I remember at one point I was put on a hard narcotic for these migraines, and I'd have to stay home from school. And I think a lot of it, actually, some of it was dehydration. I didn't drink a lot of water. And I played sports, but the other part is I know it had something to do with all those dyes and sugar. So quick story about my 3-year-old. We went to a party and there were maraschino cherries given out. We didn't let him eat the cake because it wasn't gluten-free. So we were like, oh, let's find a substitute. So we saw this jar of maraschino cherries, and so I just started feeding those to him like crazy. And he probably ate 9 or 10 of them. Loved it, and I love giving things to my children that make them happy, obviously, but not if it's at risk of their health. And so he eats all those cherries, and he'd kind of like had a little bit of an attitude when we got home, and we just kind of chalked it up to him being tired and it being a big day. And my wife went to put him down for the night, and I can only describe the way he acted before bedtime as like possessed, and not my child. I had never seen him act like this. He couldn't stop screaming, crying. He was almost like convulsing, and the only thing that Brittany could do was just grab him and hug him and hold him as tight as she could. And we looked at each other like, where is our child? Like this, I was scared. And so she finally puts him to bed, calms him down enough. He just passes out from like just the crazy reaction that he had. And we were thinking like, what caused that? And I didn't know this, and I knew about red dyes, and we don't give our kids dye, artificial dyes, but I didn't know that maraschino cherries, they're not that bright red naturally. So they're full of red dye, like a ton of it. So just having that experience and that story, I got to see what a pure body in a child who hasn't been subjected to all these toxins, what the reaction is to the brain on a 3-year-old. And just imagine what that's going to do over time if he were to continue to consume those dyes. So we've made a conscious decision that there are no artificial dyes in our house. If we go to parties and there's possibly dyes, we won't allow our kids to eat it. We actually will bring like some healthy snacks and things that we know they love, and they'll have their own version of that. And it's a delicate process. You don't want to offend people, but I'm just trying to get this information out so that we all know about it. So stay away from dyes. Definitely don't feed it to your kids. I know it's hard, but seeing the reaction that he had from that night, my prayer would be that nobody ever has to go through that. So stay strong and get rid of the dyes.